Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Erda Ayu F from Group 1 and I will present about language. Language plays a very important role in human life. The main goal of language is to communicate with other people and understand them. A person uses language in many different purposes. For example, like spoken English, spoken bahasa, sign language, or word we read. Okay, now I will explain the function of language. There are any 5 functions of language. The first is informational function, expressive function, directive function, aesthetic function, and the last is pedagogic function. Informational function. It helps us to deliver the message, describing and give new information with other people. Informational function is related to such terms as a truth and a value. For example, like the sky is blue and other. The second is expressive function. Due to the expressive function of language, we can understand the personality of speaker and his emotion. For example, like we say, I love this movie, I love this song. We don't give a listener of any particular information about the subject, but express our feeling about it. And you can express your feeling through poetry or literature, or maybe you can express your feeling through social media. You can update story in Facebook, Instagram, and other. The third is directive function. Language aims to influence the behavior or attitude of others. Examples of directive are command and request. For example, when we say, I'm hungry, it means information about us and request of food. For example, please open the door or please close the door and other. And the fourth is aesthetic. It helps us to use words as a tool of poetic art and created to sin. All art understood as art is taken to embody this function. An object value it is beauty rather than a value or usefulness. Whether a gorgeous car or an elegant teapot. And the last is pedagogic. The purpose of this function is to maintain social relationship or continue the conversation. For example, when we meet other people in some place, we can start talking about something interesting, like, hey, how are you today? And then, what are you doing in here? So, informational function is to convey information, expressive function to express our feeling or emotion, directive function is to give other command, aesthetic function to create artistic effect, and the last is pedagogic to maintain social bonds. And okay, now I will explain the 7 criteria of language. The first is standardization, vitality, historicity, autonomy, reduction, mixture, and the factorum. Standardization is process by which language is codified in some way. The second is variety. Variety is an existence of living communities of speakers. For example, we identifying people motivator by using language. We can hear that motivator use one language, or we can get new language from him. The third is historicity. Historicity is the fact that group of people find a sense of identity through using a particular language. For example, we join in some community business. We can have friends from other city. We use one language but different in dialect. Autonomy is about feeling. Language must be feel the language must be Autonomy is about feeling. Language must be felt by it is spoken from different language. For example, in Malaysia and Indonesia. In Indonesia, kemarin is yesterday, but in Malaysia, kemarin is 2 days ago. And the fifth is reduction. Reduction is the fact that particular variety can be regarded as a variety, not an independent entity. And the sixth is mixture. Mixture that the feelings of speaker that have the purity of the purity of variety. And the last is the factonom. The factonom, the feeling they are both good speaker and pure speaker. We can identifying both good speaker and pure speaker when they speak or written. Okay, I think enough for me. And the next presentation will be present by Shella Arum.
Hello everyone, my name is Shella Arum. I will explain about the dialect. In language use community, there are several dialects that differ from one community to another community even though they use the same language. The word dialect came from Greek word dialectos, which corresponds to an accent. The meaning of the dialect is language variation that have been mastered by the people of their respective region. By using dialect speech, people can find out or understand where the speaker lives or where the speaker came from. The characteristic of the dialect is two speakers from the same dialect of the language can understand each other. If two speakers cannot understand each other, that's not a dialect, but it's an independent language. Theoretically, the two speakers from different of group in society can communicate well even though they use their own system. There are two kinds of the dialect. First is the regional dialect and the second is social dialect. I will explain about the regional dialect first. When you travel to another country or area, you will notice that in that area have different in pronunciation, different in choice of word, different in form of word, and different in syntax. For example, in Central Java, we have several dialects like Banyumasan, Tegalan, Semarangan, and others. even though they use the same language, namely Java language, but they have different in pronunciation. And then I will give you another example. In South Korea, just as in Indonesia have several dialects, in South Korea also have several dialects in each region. Although they use the same language, they live in the same country, but they have different in pronunciation. There are 6 kinds of dialect in South Korea, namely Gyeongsang, Gyeonggi, Gangwon, Chungcheong, Jolla, and Jeju. I will explain one of them. Chungcheong dialect. The Chungcheong dialect is more slowly when spoken and more friendly than the other dialect in the South Korea. The characteristic of Chungcheong dialect is add word you in the each end of the sentence. Like when you say 안녕하세요 in standard language of Korean, then in Chungcheong dialect you will say 안녕하세요. It means hello. And then in Korean drama, they usually use Gyeongsang dialect. The Gyeongsang dialect is a little impolite than other dialect in South Korea. So, the regional dialect is based on geographically or area. The second, I will explain about the social dialect. Whereas the regional dialect based on geographically, then the social dialect originated from social group, like a social class, religion, and then ethnic. I will give you example of social dialect. In a community, like a community anime lovers, they have word or vocab that only understand by the community, like a waifu, sensei, kawaii, senpai, and many other words. And also in community of drakor lovers, they also have word or vocab that only can understand by the community, like bias, 90 line, diebak, and many others of words. So social dialect can understand by the people belong to the community and the other people cannot understand. I think it's so. Now I think it's enough from me. Thank you for your attention.
Hello guys, let me introduce myself. My name is Agnesya Zellyca and you can call me Agnesya. I come from 5B class English Education Department. Here, I want to explain you about varieties of my study subjects in social linguistics. Okay, varieties here means that is varieties in a language that appear in a society. Varieties here means that there is a varieties in language that appear in society. Varieties has a mass of a lot of kind. For the first one is register. Register is a language variety is associated with a particular topic, subject, or activity. The example is a doctor and nurse. A doctor and nurse will be know about the hepatitis, diabetes, and etc. But an accounting didn't know about that. He just know about money, assets, and each other. And the second one is style. Style, it is influenced by dialect. It's such as grammatical, ungrammatical, formal, informal, and also slang. The third one is belief. Belief, it was formed by media and assumed that it can be influenced people's mind. For example, like in Indonesia, name of football group from Indonesia will be changed into English, such as Madura United, Sriwijaya FC, and etc. And the third one is pidgin. Pidgin is a fully developed language in races when speakers of two different speaker language encounter one another and have an informal limited language communication, then they will create new language. For the example is in the regional market. There is Malaysian people of Malaysia, Brunei, Vietnam, and also Indonesian people. They will use Melayu as their language to communicate each other. The fifth one is Creole, a fluffy functional language of its own which includes elements of its parent language. A Creole language develops among the children of pidgin speakers. The example, because of colonialism, nature language in Indonesia will be spoke. For example, train, spur in touch, S-P-O-O-R. But in Indonesian people say sepur, S-E-P-U-R. I think it's enough for my explanation for you, and I hope you understand what I say clearly. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.